A very good afternoon, one and all. Welcome, very good afternoon. And it's going to be another feast of lecture today. Morning we had an excellent lecture from Anand about business plan writing, and then of course how can he educate us on as startups. And today we have a distinguished guest, Professor D. Balasubramaninan and Anand Govindaluri, two together. It rarely happens. And may I request Dr. Anand Govindaluri to come onto the dais, please. And may I also request Dr. Professor D. Balasubramaninan also come onto the dais, please. And to give the welcome address, may I request Professor Redana, School of Life Sciences, to give the welcome. Thank you, sir.
Thank you, Dr. Sridharan. It is indeed a great pleasure to welcome you all to the third series of the Yellapragada Technopreneurship Gem series. And you all remember very well that we have started the Technopreneurship Gem series in honor of a great scientist, Dr. Yellapragada Subbarow, who was indeed responsible for the discovery of many life-saving drugs. And this all was initiated with the support and encouragement that was given by Dr. Anand Govindaluri. The credit goes to him who has started and continuing this the thing. And you also remember that this is associated with honoring the scientists with best publication of social relevance, and which we have done in the last two series also, and this time also we have included a patent also into that, not only a publication but also patent of which is of social relevance. And for the first inauguration of this series of lectures, we have invited Professor Prem Kumar Reddy. Professor Balu knows him very well, and who has started his career as a scientist and then parallelly started his own company and brought the product from the discovery to all the way to clinical trials, and it may be approved any time. Several such products are in pipeline. I think 3 of them are in clinical trials, and preclinical another 4 or 5 candidates. So that was a good model for a scientist to start the career as a well-recognized scientist and then also start. For the second series, we have invited Dr. Harish Iyer, who worked in various companies including Shanta Biotech, and then now currently he is with Gates Foundation, mainly identifying and supporting the projects of social relevance. And for the third series, we are really proud to have Dr. Balasubramaninan, who have been nurturing and supporting the popular science as well as the biotechnology in the state. As the chairman of the Biotechnology Advisory Committee, he has been responsible for the growth of pharma and biotech industries in Hyderabad, in Genome Valley, in addition to his contribution to the starting after completing his term at CCMB at various levels. He has joined the LV Prasad Institute as a Director of Research and brought it to the international levels with funding from a variety of agencies. Now it is recognized in the world as one of the best laboratories involved in research for eye disease disorders. And Dr. Anand has been continuously supporting us to bring this to this level. I am sure you will all enjoy the lecture by Dr. Balasubramaninan and the fireside chat between the two, and hope you will all enjoy this. Thank you.
It is my good fortune to introduce Professor D. Balasubramanian Garu, Distinguished Scientist and Director of Research Emeritus, LV Prasad Eye Institute, Hyderabad. Padma Shri Professor D. Balasubramanian Garu is a highly recognized scientist who obtained his PhD in 1965 from Columbia University, New York, and postdoctoral fellowship at the Minnesota Medical School, Minneapolis, USA. He returned and worked at the Department of Chemistry at IIT Kanpur from 1967 to 1977. Moved to the University of Hyderabad as Professor and Dean of Chemistry during 1977 to 1982, and to CCMB, Hyderabad as Deputy Director and Director until 1998. He is currently at the LV Prasad Eye Institute, Hyderabad, has received many awards, honors and recognition, some of which the Padma Shri by the Government of India in 2002, the highest award, Civilian Honor Award from France, FICCI Award, award from several pharmaceutical companies, Gold Prizes for biomedical research, the prestigious Bhatnagar Prize Award, and the Khwarizmi Prize for Medical Sciences, Iran, and also awarded the TWS Prize for Basic Medical Sciences from Italy. Professor Balasubramanian Garu, lovingly known as Balu, is elected as a Fellow of all three scientific academies of India and was President of Indian Academy of Sciences from 2009 to 2012. He is also elected the Fellow of the German Academy of Sciences, of the Third World Academy Science, Trieste, Italy, of the African Academic Science in Africa. Perhaps the most notable contribution during the last 3 decades has been the single-minded involvement, promotion, and enhancement of eye research in India. Towards this, Professor Balasubramanian Garu has joined the non-profit, non-government eye institution, the LV Prasad Eye Institute in Hyderabad, as a Director of Research in 1998. Here, he has encouraged clinicians, ophthalmologists to not only treat the eye, but also enter into research in collaboration with basic scientists in what is now referred to as translational research, from lab to bench to bedside, or equally as well, bedside of the patient to the lab bench. This has involved public health and epidemiology, genetics, molecular biology, stem cell biology and therapy, infection and microbiology, and vision and physics. He helped establish the Indian Eye Research Group, IERG, which has more than 200 members from all over India. Established collaborative research with other centers such as Arvind Eye Hospital, Madurai, Shankar Nethralaya in Chennai, RP Center at the AIIMS, New Delhi. He has contributed to the growth and expansion of the field of biochemistry, molecular biology, with special reference to the area of protein diseases, such as cataract of the eye, brain disorders, by pointing out how misfolding of the protein chain leads to pathology. Professor D. Balasubramanian Garu has been writing popular science columns since 1987 in national newspapers such as News Time, Times of India, and The Hindu since 1990 till date. His column is bi-weekly, every alternate Sunday, and is called Speaking of Science. It is available on the internet, and about 100 of them is also being published as a book by The Hindu in 2020. For his contributions to popular science, he has been awarded UNESCO's Kalinga Prize in 1999 and the Indira Gandhi Prize for the popularization of science. Sir, it is my honor, it is our honor to welcome you back home, to your home, University of Hyderabad, for the prestigious address of Yellapragada Subbarows Technopreneurship Gem Series. Thank you very much.
Friends, before I even start, I think we should certainly pay our tribute to Anand's late father, as well as an outstanding biochemist, Professor Tangirala Ramasarma, who passed away almost 3 weeks ago. I think it's appropriate that on one hand, we what shall I say, pay our respect for the demise of your father and the father of physical chemistry and biochemistry, Professor Ramasarma, who was an anchor. Recently, we had the centenary celebrations of the Department of Biochemistry in IISc Bangalore, and he was very much there, talking to everybody, entertaining people until about 8:30, 8:45 or so. Then he went home and suddenly had essentially vomited and so on, and had a huge cardiac arrest and passed away. It would be appropriate, I think, Anand, for us to stand in honor of these people. Thank you. We also pay tribute today, being the third such occasion, to mourn the passing of an outstanding chemist, in fact, doctor turned chemist turned biochemist. He talked about how I moved from being a physical chemist all the way up to working in an eye hospital. This gentleman, Yellapragada Subbarows, born in 1895, passed just about the year India attained independence. So when people talk about pre-independent or colonial India, he truly was one master. I don't know how many of you have read the tribute that was paid to Dr. I shouldn't say Professor Subbarow, until his 1948 demise. He was still called only a student. He obtained his master's degree, in fact his medical degree first from Madras University, moved to go on from there to Harvard, the Laterally Labs, where he, essentially because he was not a doctor recognized by the Americans, he had to be essentially pretty much like a student. And because he had to be a student, he could get on into that kind of a visa. Those days, visas were not very difficult, although there was strict qualification-based entry into the United States. Until he passed away in 1948, he still did not have a visa. Regular visa is essentially only considered to be a student kind of a visa. But during this time, Dr. Subbarow has transformed science, changed lives, and we pay tribute to him for the third time. You talked about how the previous two, both Hari and Dr. Reddy, have already paid tribute, but I think I would strongly recommend to all the people in the audience to go back and look at this particular. If you're interested, write to me. I can actually give you this article. Just look at this. What a medical student working for a company associated with Harvard, Laterally Labs, had done well before we had NMR, mass spectrometry, nothing of that kind. And he looked into these molecules. For example, polymyxin, very common drug today. Who discovered it? Subbarow. Aureomycin, all the mycins that you are talking about, parent of which happens to be aureomycin, is again Yellapragada Subbarow. Folic acid, every alternate biochemical mechanism involves folic acid in the cellular process. And the cyanocobalamin, it took 24 years for Professor Woodward and his team to try and synthesize it atom by atom in Harvard. He got the Nobel Prize just for chemically synthesizing this. But the structure for the molecule was already put together. And notice not just one, but there are several such: hydrocobalamine, methylcobalamine, adenocobalamine, and cyanocobalamine. They were all discovered, analyzed, molecular structure analyzed, and so on by Subbarow. Let me again remind you, you couldn't even determine the molecular weight other than using what used to be called the Kjeldahl method. I don't know how many, maybe some of us, at least a couple of elders who are sitting here might know this. But the Kjeldahl method essentially meant to look at atom by atom, fragment by fragment, determine the molecular weight, and find out if that fits with the structure that they have given. But determine the structure, find out which atoms are there, find out what the molecular weight is, and determine then the valency of each one of these and how it's bound and so on. No easy task. Today, just one PhD student in University of Hyderabad to isolate something from a natural material, purify it, determine its structure, activity, and applications of it and so on, would take about 5 years. In today's technology, there's something very important, okay? In today's technology, isolation from a mixture, probably a 1-week job, using something called chromatography. First you do paper chromatography, and then you do column chromatography, and attach that column chromatograph with a mass spectral device. Okay, LCMS, many of you know this. I did not know, and I got my PhD in 1965. Professor Ranganathan, late Dr. S. Ranganathan, all of you might remember him, fantastic organic chemist. I was his colleague in IIT Kanpur. He moved to Hyderabad, and he was part of the team that actually put together cyanocobalamine in Woodward's group. And he did not have, at that time, any access to NMR. It was only in the late 60s that NMR became important. The late 70s that you could actually put in C13 NMR, deutero NMR, and so on. So that tells you the kind of difficulty this must have had. I think all these, each one of these is a medical value. That's important. Atrazan, dimethylcarbamazine. At that time, it was used against elephantiasis, big legs and so on. And it then became useful even as malaria, anti-malarial and so on. And this is only the parent molecule that you have here, which is hetrazan or diethylcarbamazine. All the carbamazines also very well known. Alas, the malaria parasite is smart enough. It's smart enough to mutate itself so that it is no longer either active against quinine or active against the carbamazine groups and so on. I just want to read this because you already have had 2 lectures about him the last 2 years, but this is a quotation from Dr. Bhargava. Yellapragada Subbarow was not born great. His mother had to sell the little jewelry that she possessed to provide for his education. Nor was greatness thrust upon him. He achieved greatness by imagination, self-confidence, love of fellow humans, and an inner compulsion to alleviate human suffering. This, I think, is important. This is why the world across is now paying tribute to him. An inner compulsion to alleviate human suffering. And he did what no other Indian had ever done till then on foreign soil. I'm asked often to talk about what has been the contributions of Indian scientists for the last 200 years, 300 years. The reason I'm talking about 200 or 300 is that's when colonial empire of the British Empire occupied India. Until that time, Indian science was not Baconian science. What I mean by that is, an English scientist called Francis Bacon defined how science works. An idea is born. Bunch of experiments are actually tried out. Then, based on whether the experiments prove your idea, then you come out with a theory. Still not sufficient. If A can do this, can B do exactly the same thing using the same method and so on? Reproducibility. If both these fit, then the logic behind what you thought of as a hypothesis comes out to be true. This is modern science. India had great science, lot of which was empirical. Explanations were not necessarily always logical the way we think today, as Francis Bacon thinks of. This is not the occasion to talk about that, but one of the things that the British Empire, the colonials, gave to us was Baconian science. And Indian science, using this model, has flourished during his time. He was a Baconian scientist. So were all the greats, whether you think of C.V. Raman or T.R. Seshadri or the biochemists that we just had the centenary celebrations of and so on. Organic chemists, outstanding organic chemists. Sukhdev, P.K. Bhattacharya, T.R. Govindaluri, Salimuzzaman Siddiqui, Asima Chatterjee, all these people. So that's one gift that colonial science gave to India. This is why Dr. Bhargava writes as and he did what no other Indian had done on foreign soil. Some doctors, in fact, were important. But his key idea was that the inner compulsion to alleviate human suffering. He made some of the most important and seminal contributions that were destined to transform a whole range of basic and applied sciences and save innumerable human lives. If there was a Nobel Prize for those who died virtually unknown, but whose accomplishments lit the path of many who came later, in that sense, he was a mentor in absentia. Those who came, Subbarow would surely be among the first to receive the Nobel. Of course, he was not given. Even today, in our country, very few people know of him. How many of you in the audience, not the front 2-3 rows, have heard of Yellapragada Subbarows' contributions, not the name? 1, 2, at least one youngster there. Okay, did you know all this? That's why lectures of this kind are important. They tell you what is it that he did, under what circumstances and conditions. The mother sells a little jewelry that she had. He gets his degree from Madras, has purely by chance goes on to Boston and starts working. So, whose accomplishments lit the path of many who came later. Subbarow would surely be amongst the first to receive it. Even today in our country, very few people know of him. The efforts of the Centenary Committee, there was a Centenary Committee, I think it was actually held right here in Hyderabad. They succeeded in getting the government issue a stamp in his honor in 1995. I wish I had a copy of it. Do any of you, do you have it, Edna? It'll be the fourth lecture. Give them. Yes. But he has not been given the appropriate recognition by the nation until today. We are given Bharat Ratna, posthumous. Bhargava asked, why not Yellapragada Subbarow? This is no, praising without any reason. This is the kind that I think one should consider very seriously. The government of India doesn't know it. At least in 1995, they said, fine, we'll come out with a stamp. The postal ministry or whatever information, whatever ministry comes out with stamps and so on, seems to have at least been persuaded to do so. I thought I'll stop it at this particular stage because the reason I'm stopping it is because these structures and the determination of these structures, not all by Subbarow, but certainly he kindled other people to try and do this as well, his colleagues and so on. And laterally labs, of course, made quite a bit of a profit because of these introductions. And they came from bacterial sources, largely from plants and trees and so on. So, natural product chemistry of the kind that was being tried elsewhere was also tried by Dr. Subbarow. That brings me to yet another point. That point really has to do with if this is the kind of a discovery one can make, and these discoveries then stand the test of time, and based on the test of time, new molecules are made. For example, Subbarow says, I have made polymyxin, which is very good for one particular biological condition. Today the questions are being asked. If polymyxin or aureomycin is good for one particular biological problem, can it also be repurposed? Is it good for a second kind of a problem? Right in your campus, the Dr. Reddy Life Institute of Life Sciences, DRILS as they call it, is engaged specifically in the idea of a molecule that's good for one disease. Can it be good for another disease? What's the logic? The logic is mostly such molecules act either on DNA or on RNA or on proteins, occasionally on polysaccharides, and very little on lipids. The four major molecular constituents of a given. Today we have the technology. In fact, people right here, Lalita Guru Prasad, for example, is one who's I think, was quite familiar with this kind of a thing. My own colleagues in CCMB, my own former colleagues in CCMB, have the ability, if I give you the structure of part of a gene or a gene itself, in other words, the DNA sequence of a given gene, what does the gene do? The gene must transcribe into RNA and translate from there to the given protein. This is the basis of the library that the gene has. Now to activate the gene, it's quiet. So you need a promoter who has to promote the gene. Fine. I now, given the sequence of the gene, I can now make a molecular model of it. Shape. And the shape may have, particularly the shape of a DNA or an RNA, is somewhat limited. But the protein, the translational product that comes out of it, we know what the structure is. Yet another man who should have been given the Nobel Prize, the late Professor G.N. Ramachandran, did precisely that. Given the sequence of amino acids in a protein, I will tell you what are the structures, three-dimensional structures, that the protein may not be able to adopt. It's a negative thing. And he did that by looking at the bonds, the bond angles, and the dihedral angles between one set, another set. What's the dihedral angle between these? And this is the so-called Ramachandran diagram, Ramachandran map. This came about because he had put up a structure, as you all know, for collagen. Some proteins are essentially shaped into the form of a one helix. DNA type, a double helix, one on top of the other. And in his case, it was a triple helix. He published it, and there was a review that came out from Alan Rich and so on, saying there's something wrong with this particular structure because some blah blah. Ramachandran got pretty wild on that. And he called his students, Ramakrishnan, Sasisekharan, you fellows sit there and tell me what are the possible structures that these peptides can adopt and what they cannot adopt. There was no computer. It was the smallest computer, the biggest computer they had at that time was something called a Wong computer. Analog, you had to go bit by bit and so on. And thus came the Ramachandran diagram. I'm spending some time because, again, just like Subbarow, some of you may know the name Ramachandran but not know what is it that he did that's so important for protein structures. And when he said the following angles are not possible, in other words, the molecular shape of a given protein may not be this particular kind. You can't fold it in a particular manner and so on. Today, we have something like 24,000 proteins whose three-dimensional structures are known. Every one of them follows the Ramachandran conditions. This he published around 1970 to 75 or so. No Nobel. So I think these are some situations. But apart from that, what I wanted to say was, given this, if I have the sequence of a gene, I can predict what the shape of it is going to be. And move on from there, I can now, from the sequence of the gene or the RNA, I will now deduce the sequence of the protein. I can now go on my computer. Triple IT fellows are also doing that. And tell you what's the three-dimensional structure this protein is going to adopt. You go to the experiment and you find that's true. But the important thing about this is, when a drug or any kind of a molecule that's going to bind on to this protein structure, kind of a ball, let's say a globular structure and so on, you know that there are some spots where the small molecule can go and bind, the binding surface. All right. This molecule, for example, which is a trigger, can actually go on and sit on one particular lock, if you were, key, if you were, okay. Given that, I can now try and predict what are the other regions that are the binding sites of the same protein. If that be so, can I then actually cut down the activity of the gene or push up the activity of a gene and so on by using a different molecule or a different promoter on a different surface of the same protein. That's restructuring or repurposing it. If aureomycin binds to one particular part of a given protein, I now know the protein structure. Can I look at some other area where the binding site will be and use drug B to sit on that and thus activate or deactivate the protein's activity? That I think is rather important. So restructuring and repurposing the molecules like polymyxin, aureomycin, folic acid and so on is a new game that's still going on, both in drills, they're all neighbors, drills and then IIIT and so on, and CCMB and several other places. I think in that sense it's particularly important to go back and look. I also want to talk about that because we are now moved from structure determination, activity determination into prediction. And the prediction is rather important because now there are illnesses, diseases that come for which today there is no easy solution. We need to find new solutions for this. If it is, for example, a drug against cancer or against diabetes and so on, what do? The given drug should be used for months after months. In other words, the drug company will mint $1 million just because these are long-term drugs. On the other hand, if I were to have a drug that binds to a particular site and so on, for infection in particular, for infection, what do? You take whatever drug that's good for it. After a week or so, you're quite okay. In other words, it doesn't sell as much as, let's say, Pfizer or GSK or Merck and so on they do. The large-scale drug companies are no longer interested in finding solutions or drugs for infection. It also turns out that some of these new bacteria, fungi, viruses, and so on are drug resistant. I use the same drug, let's say I'm using penicillin. Penicillin resistant. I'm using something else. This is essentially, largely there, and the erythromycin, for example, fluoxins of various kinds and so on. Much of what we know today as the multi-drug resistant fungi, bacteria, and viruses. We have no solution today. Right now, we have a difficulty with respect to the latest one, which is a corona-based. So it's essentially a coronavirus, what they now call as COVID. We need immediate solutions for this. How do we do that? Drug companies, which can sell millions, are not interested. In America, for example, when I was there for about 2 months ago, I found all these drug companies don't want to touch anti-infective agents. So, the government of US, they put together a particular group just to look at this particular problem and gave a grant of over $1 billion. 3 companies took on to that. They found a solution. At least I can give you an example. I wrote about that for a month ago. In fact, it was called India Should Fight Against Multi-Drug Resistant Pathogens. One particular company, I'll tell you what it is called. Accelerator. Accelerator successfully found a solution to multi-drug resistant pathogens. It was cleared for clinical trials by Food and Drug Administration or FDO and by WHO. Sadly, Accelerator could not make any sustained profit. Right? It folded. 3 such examples where people are able to find possible drugs which even can pass through clinical trials, but there's no money in it. The number of such multi-drug resistant bacteria or fungi or whatever, not viruses, particularly bacteria and fungi, of which people are affected in America, is hardly 1 million. In India, it will multiply already to 30 million. China. In other words, countries which are highly populated, where people interact with one another, and medical care is not necessarily as good as it should be, here is an opportunity. Some drug companies in India actually thought about that. One of them, a company called Cipla. Some of you have heard of this drug company called Cipla, started by Dr. Yusuf Hamid. Cipla is always looking for solutions, Gandhian. In fact, Dr. Yusuf Hamid's father, Hussain Hamid, was truly a disciple of Mahatma Gandhi. When he put up the company in Bombay, one of the things that Mahatma Gandhi told him was, whatever you do, it must be usable by the poorest of the poor. Then he sends his son, Hussain, now you go to, those days it was UK, so you go to Cambridge, learn organic chemistry, drug chemistry, and come back and start this work. Yusuf Hamid comes back, takes over Cipla, and finds that we can make the same acyclovir that Merck and pharma companies are making there. AIDS or HIV was prevalent all over the African continent. One possible drug against HIV is this molecule called acyclovir. And the cost per patient per year in Africa was about $12,000 to $15,000. Imagine the income of a poor African, maybe $1,000, maybe $500. The cost of an average Indian is approximately about $2,500 to $3,000 US. Poor Indian. Yusuf Hamid thought of this and said, I'm going to make acyclovir in India, and I'm going to break the patent, and I'll distribute it to African countries. He made a deal with Tanzania, Kenya, Uganda, and a couple of other places, I think Senegal and Nigeria, and said, I will sell it to you for $600 a year. You can use it wherever you want. The drug companies couldn't do much. He is defying and breaking their patent. Illegal. He said, take me to prison. Nobody could do that because we're doing it for human welfare. We're not doing it for Cipla's money making. Okay. So, again, when this thing came about last year, that MDR, multi-drug resistant bacteria and fungi, are not sold, they don't make enough money and so on, he bought that entire company, Ecaogen, Cipla US, bought this company, including the patent for the molecule, and I'll give you the patent money, if and when I start doing it and so on. So here is an opportunity. And the opportunity is for Indian companies to start working on such. Can, for example, in fact, I asked Dr. Kiran Majumdar Shah, Biocon. She has a branch here called Syngene, which I think, thanks to Radhana and people like that, of FABA and BioAsia and so on, they were able to persuade her to put this together and so on. So we asked her that day. I asked her that day, so why don't you put together something? So it's not just that. What about laboratories? Our own labs right here in University of Hyderabad. Can you try outstanding examples of what has been done elsewhere? How closely you can do that? Drill said they are going to try and do repurposing. Fine, that's a good idea too. Okay. And just before coming here, I got a message from one of my former students who is now sitting there in Houston, that the scare that we now have about this new virus that we have, coronavirus, COVID-19 it's called, okay, is a combination of remdesivir, I don't even know what it is, and chloroquine apparently seems to work. The lab results that are come in New England Journal of Medicine and in Lancet. And I asked Srinivas Oruganti here, can you handle this? And I also asked Dr. Balram Bhargav, ICMR, what do you think of this? Can this be done in India? And Drills has already started working on how can one make this compound called remdesivir easy enough, or can I also try using repurposing of one of my drugs and so on. We now know the sequence of COVID-19. It's been already put together. So can you now using modern methods of determination of structures, three-dimensional structures and so on, and find alternate or additional pathway to go and bind down to the protein and stop it. I think these are all opportunities that we have. Academicians, industry people, and pharma companies in India to take charge and look at the MDR, or multi-drug resistant bacteria against them. And the last thing is about the viruses. Recently we had this, when we had the BioAsia, this gentleman had come who actually had put together immunotherapy for cancer. Make specific T cells, lymphocytes in the whatever drug they are going to use, so that, remember, T cells are the ones that actually make antibodies. How do I do that? I'll take a given cancer cell. I'm going to introduce by genetic introduction using a tamed virus. In that virus, I'm actually going to put specifically T cell promoter molecules. So it's a genetic introduction. Many of you do this right now in order to look at the biochemistry of it. You actually take a given cell, add another genome into it, and see what the solution is going to be. Likewise, I take the cancer cell, I introduce through a viral delivery vehicle such molecule that will actually increase the antibody production in the host cell. No drugs. Essentially, you put this together and increase the amount of T cells. Some of the T cells are killers. Some of them are promoters for making new antibody molecules and so on. I think some of these are the possibilities. I thought it will be a proper occasion to talk about what it was between 1895 and 1948 and what it has been where you start working for such communities, nations, much of, I think, Southeast Asia, the whole continent, all of Africa, 52 countries, where the poverty line is very large. The demand for such drugs is very high, and you can certainly try and do that. And each one that makes a contribution for this kind of a global wellness, I think would be very important. And I hope some of you, at least in the audience, would like to think about it a little more. Specifically the problem in terms of multi-drug resistant bacteria which can be killed. Virus is something else that also one needs to do, because many of these antiviral compounds still need quite a bit of experiments and ideas in order to get an antiviral molecule. Can there be a multiple antiviral drug, or is the antiviral drug specific for one virus and another virus and so on? These are issues that bother us. So we have come a long way from 1900s to 2020, and new molecules have come about, new methods have come about, and new demands have come about. And I think that's appropriate time to think in terms of what the conditions were 200 years ago, what they are now, and what can be by even 2025 or so. Thank you. This article, some self-advertisement. This article came in the Hindu of 12th January. Yeah, I think India should lead the fight against multi-drug resistant pathogens. The Hindu on Sunday. Okay, one other request I have. Please do not give any plaque, any shawl, any photographs and so on. Use them for some other purpose. Many of you, I know, the moment you go home, Fireglai, did you bring one more? Where the hell do I keep it? Okay. I think much better than that. Yes. Simply say thank you and that's it. You got it, Anand?
No, that is perfect. Dana is doing that. No. So now we're going to have an interesting, what is called a fireside chat.
Okay.
Sir, this is kind of like a bit different. We are in an academic institution, and obviously there is a lot of deep insights that you have shared to our scientists. Over the next 20-30 minutes, we're going to talk anything but science. We're going to talk a little bit about the person behind what the whole world knows Professor D. Balasubramanian as a scientist. We want to know a bit more than that. And so the next 30 minutes is going to be about your personal life, about about your role model, about role of parents, and so on and so forth. Something which the whole idea is how can we inspire scientists to think big? And obviously to think big, they also have to be a catalyst for themselves. I personally, in my life, having come from a very middle-class family, my dad took a loan of 2,000 rupees to finish his PhD from Andhra University in 1961. From those backgrounds, we have always motivated each other and motivated to go up in life, in thought process. So my dad inspired me to be a thought leader, and I'm sure that you will be having, or you must be having, a role model. So my first question to you, sir, is who is your role model? What was the role of your parents, especially your father and mother, as a child, as a youth, and as an adult? Thank you.
I don't have one role model. The reason for that, I think, is I come from a lower middle class family, but a lot of people you admire a lot of people. They're not role models, but it's also a bit of that and so on. I was born in a village, a place called Subbarow, which is about 10 miles from Madurai. And we were I would say lower middle class, or maybe I'm wrong, because my grandfather had quite a bit of land, Mirasdar as they used to call it, okay. And we lived in an agraharam, okay. I lost my mother when I was about 3 years or 4 years old. So I grew up in a family that had aunts and uncles and brothers, not brothers, they're from one brother, a couple of other cousins and so on. But the discipline that came from our grandfather, Rajaramnath Iyer, was quite something. He was also a veena player. And I hear that my mother was a singer. So music was one that certainly was part of the environment that I lived in. The second thing is language was important. And you must be multilingual. Was one that was impressed by my family. So I learned, of course, Tamil poets and Tamil, all these big writers and so on, Sanskrit, and English. So that happened. And I moved because in order to go to high school and so on, you had to come to Chennai. No, first was Trichy, Tiruchinnappalli, and then and here, I think, was my uncle. He was a lawyer. Again, a middle class family with a little thing and so on. And he put the desire to learn from reading a lot of books. So that, I think, became also rather part of it. So you notice I don't have one particular mentor or something. I just went on, just like most other children go on and so on. Discipline was one that certainly was important. And you know how in traditional families, some auntie will come from next door and say, "Ayyo, this poor guy lost his mother," and blah, blah, blah. That kind of a thing will happen. So that kind of a sympathy was also a part of, I kind of felt good about that, I have to say this. Then I passed high school. It so turned out that I passed high school when I was 13.
Oh.
Okay. And those days, Madras University, Andhra University, and another nearby, not Bangalore, some other university, they said, no, you had to be 15 in order that you can go to. Or you can, read for one more year. It will be essentially kind of spend the year in a class, but you won't get a pass or fail and nothing at that time. So you just go sit there and okay. Here is where I think really the mentorship truly came about. That's my father's, mother's, sister's son.
Oh.
Okay, Priyamma Pilla. His name is V. Lakshminarayanan. He was an engineer from Madras Engineering College, Gindi Engineering College, Madras. He was he applied for a position and he was given the position of the director of the Birla College of Engineering, Pilani. He said, send this boy, Rajasthan University. There was no bits yet. So we are talking about more like about 1959, no, 1953. Because I was 39 born. 1953, and he said, you can come there and so on. That opened my life completely, attitudes in life and so on. Okay. First of all, he had 6 daughters, and I'm the only guy sitting there. So I become a kind of a pet son and so on. And going to Pilani, where people don't eat rice anymore, but they only eat,
Wheat, chapati,
not just gehu, aaj bajra,
bajra.
aaj chana, that kind of a thing. So we did all that thing, okay. And college life there was something very, very nice, okay. And again, the discipline thing that Lakshminarayanan had was something that really passed on to me. And he pushed me. In fact, I got my intermediate. Those used to be a 2-year thing called ISC. And I went back to Madras. I thought I'm pretty smart and I'll be given BSc honors, 3-year honors. I didn't get it. Instead, Professor Padmanabhan got it. G. Padmanabhan, our biochemist. Okay. So then I did my BSc and went again back to Pilani and got my MSc. And this I'm talking about 1959, 1960. There I moved to United States, Columbia. So you see, there's no particular mentor, but a bunch of them, but the experience was something. I mean, imagine America, New York City, okay, completely foreign to me, never seen somebody yellow or black.
That's right.
Okay. Those of you who know about Columbia University, it's
Yeah.
116th and Broadway.
Yeah.
On the other side is Harlem.
Yes.
Okay.
Yes.
And music of Harlem
Yes.
so different, so captivating. Okay. And New York, of course, is the place where you can learn and appreciate jazz. And the jazz, classic jazz, I mean, not today's, was something that really caught on to me. Okay. So I think a lot of it, clearly, of course, academically and so on, was very good. When I came back as a lecturer in IIT Kanpur, one guy that I think really was something remarkable, who pushed me on and on, was Professor C.N.R. Rao, who was the head of the department of chemistry at that time. But then he became dean and all that thing. But we have kept our friendship. He didn't do any particular favors, but just looking at what C.N.R. is doing and so on, really something remarkable. And I got promoted from lecturer to assistant professor to associate professor. One of the people who was in the selection committee was Mr. Gurbakh Singh. IIT Kanpur, very good department, excellent colleagues, okay, each one pushing the other in terms of professional thing and so on. But thanks to my musical, interest, actually in Pilani I learned Hindustani music for 4 years. They had, the college had a Kelkar Sahab, and Kelkar Sahab taught me. And we continued this on in IIT Kanpur, where I learned from Shastra father. Gurbakh Singh is a fantastic musicologist. His wife actually was a professor at that time in music in PhD. IIT Kanpur, with all its equipment and so on, did not have a proper NMR machine. So I would either go to CDRI in Lucknow or Banaras Hind University, where Gurbakh Singh had this. Some of you old timers would know. If there is any equipment that is needed, I'll buy it. Okay. And so he will go to UGC and say, "Aaj kya mil raha hai? Kahan se mil raha hai? Where is it? Did the Swiss grant come? Did the Swedish grant come?" and so on. And so he said, "You come to Banaras and use my machines and so on." And the evening, After it's over, you come home and he'll be a glass of beer and roti. Okay. And so friendship started, and then he knew that I'm doing reasonably well and so on. And he said, "Yahan aa jao, come to Hyderabad." This is pretty much my life history. So you see, people who, if we say mentoring or inspiring and so on, apart from the family, I would say three people. One is my uncle from Pilani.
Yes.
The second, I think, is Professor CNR Rao. And the third is certainly Gurbakh Singh. And so, in fact, he asked, I'm boasting, but there's something I must say. He, one of these evenings, he said, "This is the tape where I have saved this tape. Tell me what rag are they playing?" Okay. I said, "This looks to me like Gorakh Kalyan." This fellow knows. Okay. And he says, when he came for a professorship, the interview, he said, "What are you doing there in Kanpur? You come to Hyderabad." "I'm just opening it." Okay. I've chosen two people to come to University of Hyderabad. One is Govardhan Mehta, the other is myself. And again, the fellows in the back seat may not even know, only some of you will know. We all lived in Vaidapatnam. Okay. And we had to come through an entire desert. Nothing. Okay. It was really, and there was no buses. You could only come by an auto rickshaw or a rickshaw and so on. So Gurbakh Singh will transport us. He had a Mercedes.
Those days.
Okay. And they would take some of us, faculty members and so on, bring over. And he made me also, I think Radhana may know, I was one of the people who actually built the boundary wall of professor of chemistry. Doing that and so on. And mentorship, see, mentorship also gives you variety of other experiences. Okay. And that is, he found that Mehta was not the kind of a guy who would, do this kind of building a wall, building the CIS, Central Instrumentation Service building. He said, "Vaisa karo. I'm going to UGC this morning. You come with me. We'll go and find out what the grants are, where the equipment can be coming and so on. So both of us will go in the morning. First stop, UGC. Second stop, you have to go and get a license for foreign somewhere. Okay. And third stop is the clearance of all this thing. We'll do that. By that time, it's about 3 o'clock or 3:30. I'll ask him, "That's our lunch." Lunch mein kuch nahi hai. Okay. Many of you will know in front of the UGC, there is a little stall. Okay. And chalo, anar ka juice bhi ho. That's it. And on the way, he will stop before you come onto the airport. I think it's now called, I don't remember, after Vasant Vihar or something. Take a minute. What are you doing now on the way to the airport? Yahan pe there is a mandi lagi hai. We have to bring sabji. Vice Chancellor and the Dean are carrying sabji. Okay. I mean, imagine things like this, okay? Very ordinary, very unusual things and so on. And yet, these are things that even today, when I go in the morning and come back in the evening, my wife says, you go to Khan Market, this particular place you can go and buy this, that.
So a little bit more personal question. Little bit more personal question.
Yes.
How did you meet your better half, and what is the role that your better half has played in your life?
Okay.
What is your message for young scientists who actually nowadays are having a stressful relationship in terms of both professional as well as personal life, especially when you have husband and wife both as scientists? So there are two parts to this question. so that we also want to see how we can learn from you.
I was a bachelor when I moved to Kanpur. I was a bachelor for almost 9 years or so, from 65 when I moved to Kanpur to about 76, 75, 74, 75 and so on. And the friendship among faculty members was very nice and informal and close. So from my house, I could go to any of my neighbors, open the refrigerators, eat what you want, play with their children, all this thing. And we used to have fortnightly singing, Ravindra Sangeet, and that kind of a thing. And particularly, the house opposite mine was Manmohan Chowdhury, who physics major, but he also started opening up the TV studios of IIT Kanpur. And I am particularly fond of his wife and 2 children, play around with them and so on. Suddenly one day, one lady comes using a bicycle and goes to Chowdhury's house. That was Shakti. The whole campus is looking at, hey, who's this wonderful girl and so on. And many bachelors were, but I had this what people call as ambidextrous. I live opposite her and so on. My father used to live with me. And so he also used to go, and the children would come and so on. He said, who's this girl? And this is Dhruti's sister, Shakti and so on. So we began talking to each other. And then I, asked my father, I want to marry this girl. She is interested. Okay. And he said, let me look at her up. And he called her home, asked several questions. She seems to have satisfied. Then I asked Shakti. And she said, let me ask my father. Okay. Her father said, where is this boy's horoscope? We are from this, this is her horoscope and so on. I need to know if it matches or not. The nice thing is, South Indian horoscope is a different format than the North Indian, okay. And now, if it doesn't fit, how do you make it fit? So my elder brother, he used to be working for the Tata Press in Bombay, he said, you send that, let me see. So he goes to Mahalakshmi temple. I think some little money was transferred. And that priest said, this is fine. 36 out of 36. I don't know what it is. Okay. She is trained. She was a lecturer at MS University, Baroda. Home science with dietetics in particular. Okay. Accomplished. But no nonsense. Okay. I am a hen-pecked husband. I don't mind being pecked by that hen. Okay. She makes more sense in most things than I do. And even today, okay, I think it's really that. Her ability to interact with people, certainly her beauty, and also the range with which she could move things and so on. And we moved from Kanpur to Hyderabad. She really also became the pet of both Gurbax Singh and his wife. And all the professors would meet in my house. You know, for what? Evening drink. Okay. Meenakshi Mukherjee, many of you remember, professor in English. Okay. Many other, including the finance officer. Okay. So our Adda was our house and so on. And she said, I won't take any job now until our children grow up a little. And then she used to go and teach, essentially informal teaching in Vidyaranya, where our children went to school there. And then the opportunity came that the CFL, now called FU,
Yes.
has opened it's a TV series, TV studio, EMR. I don't know what. UGC started this thing. Okay. Every week they'll have one show and so on. Because she knew everybody in CCMB, this one, RRL and University of Hyderabad and so on, she could put together a lot of programs. She was a producer in UGC TV. Okay. I had already started doing some, thanks to Dr. Yashpal. Some of you might remember this series called Turning Point.
Yes. Yes.
It's a family affair.
Yes.
Okay. Yashpal kind of knew me from Kanpur, and he and MGK Menon, they wanted to start this thing. So I ran through that. So Shakti made a brilliant career. After the children grew up to 5 years, 6 years old and so on, then they're doing that. She stopped all that now, not very well, pretty much homebound, but still very active, takes care of me.
What is your advice for youngsters?
Find your partner. And it's not just, what I mean is, you need to do a lot of thinking about it. And, analyze your own mind, her own mind, his own, whatever, that kind of thing. But there's no advice, but there must be an extra theme in your mind other than just doing science or research and so on. Okay. Ways of broadening your mind. Music certainly is one. Art, another one. Literature. Okay. See, this university, maybe even today, but for a long time, was the best university in English for about 20-25 years. Okay. How have you all read any of their novels or their books or reviews or so on? Usha Raman even now writes. She's a professor in communications. Okay. And Bavarala, I think he was your UNESCO professor or somebody. Okay. He just opened that university for Hyderabad. The whole campus now open for almost like India International Center. So I think broadening your mind helps your research. Broadening your mind also helps your everyday life. I think it's very important. Cut out handphones and WhatsApp and that kind of thing. WhatsApp is a bunch of nonsense. Okay. I mean, I have WhatsApp, obviously, but selective use of it.
With respect to Indian science, and you have been associated with Indian science as well as with scientific organizations in the US, the key differences that you see between the West and India, both in terms of translational research and startups.
Two or three problems with Indian education and research. Education and research. Short-term grants. Not enough grants. And those two, short-term grants, determined largely by the finance part of it rather than the research part of it. Okay. There is one difference between the grants offered by the Ministry of Defense, Ministry of Space, Atomic Energy. Okay. They don't look for what's your yearly progress in terms of impact factor and all that baloney. ISRO has given 450 crores for this year. Mission. And the mission is going to be, in order to build a satellite center, it's going to cost about 15-20 years of time. So we will do that. Okay. Whereas universities, research and so on, or even CSIR or other such institutions, the research is taught in terms of only a 5-year grant. In that 5-year grant, you are supposed to do this, that, and whatnot. Okay. In the US, second, and in India particularly, there is no other granting agency than the ministries. Where is the private granting? Okay. I have run pillar to post with Mukesh Ambani, Adani, Birlas. Okay. It's just one man here in Hyderabad who said, I will support basic research. Okay. I'll give you 1 crore a year. You do what you want. Kalla Manjireddy. Okay. And he started this one. Absolutely. And he started the, I want to have a research institution where budget will not be my main consideration. And I want it like, in fact, I want it like the Weizmann Institute in Israel. And I will support, even today, the research that's being done in drills. Much of it comes from money that comes to them from Dr. Reddy's laboratories. Okay. So, unless we start taking it as a long range effort and not answerable within 5 years, answerable within the 10, how much do you actually get? You are a university of eminence. 1,000 crores? Peanuts. What's 1,000 crore? Out of 1,000 crore, lot of things is going to go essentially for equipment, for salaries and that kind of a thing. Can I take that 10,000 or 1,000 crore and just make it an R&D? Okay.
Innovation budget.
And then, at least we are somewhat more fortunate because we are scientists. Think of the people in sociology. ICSSR doesn't give any meaningful grants. Some of the people even say, is there a reason why should we have a department of philosophy, department of music? Government secretaries are asking this question. Imagine. Okay. Unless this time range and immediately tell me what have we done with the 3 crores I gave you, that kind of a thing stops. Not going to happen. Israel is doing this. America is doing this.
Singapore is also doing it.
3.82% of GDP in Israel is by the government.
Yes.
In addition, there is this foundation, that foundation, and so on. They give. Okay. Now, again today, the Weizmann's news says the vaccine
Yes.
for coronavirus 19 will be ready in 3 months. And clinical trials may take a longer time. We can imagine the vaccine to be around in 6 months' time. Okay. They're able to do that because a lot of funding has come from the private sources. LV Prasad, we have a lot of private sources to build hospitals, to build clinics and so on, which is very, very nice. Okay. I mean, a patient who is, let's say, somewhere from, let's say, Guntur, says, I want to go to LV Prasad. He spends 2 days just coming in and going out, 1 day being here, 3 days of daily wages gone. So, a private individual says, I'm going to put up a branch of LV Prasad using your method and so on. That's how we have grown. LV Prasad today has 40 secondary centers. No research. But they are partners in our research. But get patient samples and so on. Okay. I thought at least Somaraju will do that in Care Hospital. A little bit, but not enough. So private foundations need to do this. And Dr. Varadarajan tried very hard doing that by at least what is now known as the CSR, Corporate Social Responsibility. So I think this time and financial
So earlier we had a workshop on business plan for startups, and I mentioned the need for angel investors in life sciences. We have highest number of millionaires in Hyderabad, and the number of billionaires are also increasing. But we see that the trend for angel investing, especially in biotechnology, therapeutics, medical devices, and diagnostics, has not increased. Do you think that there is a need for awareness, education, and also incentives for angel investors to basically invest in knowledge-based sectors such as life sciences?
I would say, in a way, we are fortunate because Telangana still has a broader attitude about this and many other states than even Bangalore. Again, Pradanna would know. Okay, I spoke to our minister, Mr. K.T. Ramarao. At least he thinks he is listening to you, but let's see what he does. 2 years ago, I asked him, why don't all the money for research projects comes from the central government? What's the amount of money that Telangana state does? Do you have an assenting budget? So he looked at Jayas Ranjan looks at him. I said, why don't you put together, let's say, 500 crores for the next, whatever, 5-year plan and so on. How do I do that? I said, fine, I give you a plan. I sat with a few people and said, we will offer, Telangana state will offer research grants in all areas of biology, chemistry, whatever. Not space science, not that kind of thing, for university people and so on. Each grant will be for 5 crores. It will go on for 3 years. Again, doable more and more. Okay, I pressed it further. Nothing happened. I'm going to press it again. I think Orissa have done this. So I think states funding will be also important. I think, state funding for soft sciences, not just hard science, is very important. That is not being done.
I would like to now open the floor for questions. We have a few minutes left. Are there any questions from the audience, please? Yeah, kindly introduce yourself, keep your question brief, and just ask a question. Yeah.
Thank you. Very good evening. My name is Sridhar Variti. I'm currently the CEO for the Bionist program. And thank you very much for giving the excellent Vision 2020 in 2020 for the Vision for the 2040, 2050 like that. Anand actually asked my last question actually, in a sense that nurturing these startups from the state government, actually last year it was announced that there 150 crores would be set aside. Is there any progress on that one?
I think Prof. Balasubramaninan is a catalyst and an advisor to the government, but I guess we should ask that question to the to the decision makers. Is there any other question? Yeah, please introduce yourself.
Excuse me, sir. Yes, my name is Anand, sir. I am a PhD student, Department of Plant Sciences, University of Hyderabad. Sir, my question is like more like a very thought-provoking thing. I was wondering that we talk about coronavirus. The reports had, I think there was a paper in 2007 which stated that it's a time bomb. So after that also, I think probably in 2017 or 11 something, there was another paper that also said that coronavirus is something is going on, some problem will happen, especially into bats and all. Why is it, sir, that this non-scientific community, and when I say non-scientific community, it includes media, government organizations, everyone except for people who actually do or understand science, why do they wake up at the 11th hour? Like why? Why can't we just be prepared? So what are the factors, sir? What is the reason for this? Because I've been wondering, sir, for these epidemics which are happening again and again, then we do all our stuff and all, but it's always at the 11th hour. Why?
No, some of the constraints I just talked about. Okay. Suppose, like you say, I have an idea, whatever idea it is, okay, and I need some time to experiment about this, whether it is, chemistry, physics, biology, sociology, whatever. Okay. This business of what you are asking is, give me the opportunity to think and do what I wish to do. It's a general area where I think it's going to be for the advancement of everybody. Okay. That
Also,
my
sir,
question is the same as your question.
supplementary to that, sir. Do people take scientists non-seriously? Like, I don't know, is this the trend that is growing on? People say that, climate change is not real. There are flat earth societies in this world.
Yeah.
So is it also because they're taking things non-seriously, and then once the fire is burning, then they will refer, please save us, or like that? Is it, what kind of approach is that?
No, I think your question is more towards emergency preparedness
Yeah.
and contingency management. As a matter of fact, this morning I was tweeting with Minister KTR Garu, and I told him that I saw some of the tweets that he made in recent times, especially in his interaction with the department and along with the health minister, is quite significant. In fact, I would say, as what Professor Balasubramaninan Garu has said, we are fortunate to have a proactive government and our officials are listening. We could definitely be more well prepared with emergency management, and that is a work in progress. And if you notice, we will be proud to say that we are using technology and innovation, digital marketing, and as well as some grants have been announced. I think close to 500 crores have been announced for management of coronavirus, preparedness, education, and marketing. If you see the recent announcements made by the minister, you will find these details are there. So that is work in progress. Okay.
One suggestion, I don't know if it's easy or not, but this is a very well-known university. In an environment where private donors could be attracted. What I mean by that is, there are many private donors who do things for education, maybe publicity for their names, okay, or they have given, in fact, if you look at the private donors, rich people and so on, among all the states in India, it's Andhra Pradesh and Telangana, okay, where the private donors have come in order to do things sociologically meaningful, whether it could be in terms of research and so on, or hospitals like I just talked about and so on. But many others, they build educational institutions, temples, okay, women's welfare, things like that, but not idea-related thing and so on. Since we are fortunate that there are at least about a dozen people, okay, I know some of them are, for example, GMR. GMR is the group that built the airport in Hyderabad. They are building the airport in Delhi, and they have built the airport in Istanbul and places like this. Can the university actually arrange for a 1 day or a 2 day welcome visit? You have to buttonhole everybody to come, please come, talk about it. Your success rate may be only 5 to 10%. But if you were to do that and talk in terms of, here is what we are doing, here is why we are suffering with respect to other countries and so on. We are not the only ones. Okay. All of the rest of the developing world is worried about this thing. It's only the Keck Foundation, MacArthur Foundation, and things like that. And look at what Israel has done. Can we convince at least one of them? You call 10 people. This will involve the senior faculty members who have connections. You have a Professor Raminans or something here in Dr. Gordon Mehta, right? When he's in drills. Call Prasad, Reddy Labs. They may first say, no, we are already supporting and so on. Doesn't matter. Call about 10 to 15 people, right in Hyderabad. You may not succeed, but you never succeed the first time. Somehow try and involve private foundations. We were able to do that with the Pinnamanini group who are in Guntur, Vijayawada region. Okay. They have put together a foundation called Sri Padmavati Venkateswara Foundation. Okay. They offer research grants, 3 crores. If you apply and you end up getting the grant, you will get 1 crore a year for 3 years. Okay. Some of us were involved in that. And the first run actually came out. 110 people applied. We filtered it conventional way and so on. One other thing that has happened, before I forget, I want to tell you that also. When you normally apply for a grant, you are still stuck with the government mind. I want a 5-year project, I want 50 lakhs. And where is your dream? Right? Can't you say 50 crores? Are you foolish? The government thinks you are foolish. Okay. So, and this foundation, the Pinnamanini Foundation, said we will look at that. We want you to do something, be it physics, chemistry, biology, whatever, that will finally be from what they call bench to bedside. From your research bench, it will directly be translational to the, in this case, the patient or the needy. Okay. And this 110 people who applied, we threw away already about 70 or so. Somebody wants 20 lakhs. Hey, bhaiya, we have written here 1 crore for 3 years. So, see how the existing environment has actually cut down your dreams. And therefore, we must now look for opportunities of this kind. In fact, call this Pinnamanini Foundation people. Ask them yourself.
On 2nd April, we are doing on the first attempt in the university to invite all of them. We have listed some of them, maybe we will improve the maybe TMR.
Sure. And again, call Ramarao and Jayesh Ranjan, people like this. Okay. And finally, we then finally chose something like about 40 people and asked for referees to, is this something that is reasonable and so on. And the referees cut down all this into about 15 or so. And the 15, we then sent it to external experts outside India. If this person were to apply for a grant from, say, Deutsche DFG, Deutsche Forschungsgemeinschaft, or Wellcome Trust from England, okay, would you support it? How much will you give? Okay, and got that 15 down to 3. Then the foundation, we called them all the 3 together and made the final thing is one. And one person got it for 1 crore for 3 years, total of 3 crores. Okay. So, opportunity of this kind will come, and I think it will really come from this region of the country rather than anywhere else. I think we should stop.
Thank you very much. So with this, please join me to thank Professor D. Balasubramanian Garu for his deep insights, time, energy. Thank you very much, sir, for your precious time and in the guidance to all of us. Thank you very much.
I'm sure you all must be waiting to hear who got the gold medals. There are 2 categories. One is under the patent category and the other one is under the publication category. Under the patent category, it is by Dr. Edira Veera Venkata Rama Prasad. I call upon Ram Prasad for his patent on a process for the isolation and purification of lycopene from rhodospirillum sulfurexcens and its utilization. Maybe you would like to say a few words before.
Lycopene, a tetraterpenoid carotenoid, normally present in tomato. We discovered two bacteriums which produce huge amount of lycopene, and this is the first bacterium which produces around 8 mg to 16 mg of per gram dry weight, and we made a process patent into the world, and recently it has been granted.
The second one goes to Dr. Anil Kumar Pasupuleti for his contribution on growth hormone induces Notch1 signaling in podocytes and contributes to proteinuria in diabetic nephropathy. Like to.
Sorry, Dr. Anil is not here, my boss. So I'm his student, PhD I'm doing, and I'm in 5th year. So I will be receiving this award on behalf of him, and our lab actually we are very thankful to all this jury as well as the committee as well as the bionist, and thank you very much. So the work here, what we have done recently, and we have published in the JBC this work. So we have found that there are some basic signaling pathway, Notch signaling, which is getting reactivated in the diabetic nephropathy, and we have used one drug DAPT to regulate this signaling pathway, and we have found that in the mice model the proteinuria has protected to this treatment to this drug. So thank you very much.
You are one of the authors of the publication? Yes, sir. First author. Maybe. I think for this wonderful evening, a good combination of, I see that Dr. Balasubramanian has really enlightened us the life of Dr. Yellapragada Subbarow, and not only that, he has given examples of other scientists who have contributed immensely in the country and who are role models for all of us. And specifically, Dr. The fireside chat that followed has really given us the other side of the story of Dr. Balasubramanian. We met several times, we heard him several times, we read several columns written by Dr. Balu, but this is the first time that we heard the other story of Dr. Balasubramanian. I must thank Dr. Anand for bringing that to all of us. Thank you, both of you, for joining us today, and specifically the audience for staying back. Thank you.